But you want to talk about how we how we managed to make tests of how the spacing would work in here and all that? Because I think it was pretty ingenious.
So first of all, I went through a ton of paper and then I switched to that pad. After we kind of drew out and decided, hey, this would kind of look good, let's go actually test it out, we got some chalk and we came inside and we kind of drew out where we wanted things, looked at it, and then also had to take into consideration the walls disappearing. I don't think we took that into consideration originally. It was kind of a shock a little bit.
Walls disappearing?
I mean, like the length of like.
Oh yeah, the added width and all that.
Yeah, because of insulation. Depending on the insulation you use, normally for a house it's like 4 inches, but we went with 6 inch.
Well,
just because
it's different throughout the house because they started running out while we were finishing up. So like in our loft, it's really thick to the point that like I didn't think the sheetrock was gonna stay, and it was a real juggling act. But then right there, and then on the walls, I think it's here, here, and here. Maybe right there, it is actually slightly thinner normal because they got it back in stock insulation. And then afterwards we were like, why don't we just use like the spray foam version? And my dad was like, never heard of it. And we were like, oh, I thought you just couldn't get your hands on it. So something that's worth noting is that all these amazing tiny home and van life builds, they're really inspiring, but I wanted to make it clear that it kind of sucks sometimes. I know this isn't even the right mask for this, but I'm putting up insulation on a hot, muggy day because it's just been raining and hot for like the last 2 weeks, which is making the converted garage we're temporarily using until this is done a sweltering wet hellhole. It's like living inside of a Tom Brady's jockstrap. I mean, there's a sense of victory right around the corner, but it's upsetting. You can see we've got the devil's cotton candy up in the walls. Oh, Jesus. God, that is... Right off the bat, that is overwhelming. I'm gonna just go ahead and pop this door open. But now I get the joy of finishing up the roof, which is gonna suck even more. It just makes your skin itch the second you're in here. Didn't expect it to impact my quality of life quite so quickly. But hey, that's why we cover everything up, you know? We got some insulation up there, a little insulation up there. It's hot as balls out here. And, of course, I have to be all closed up. Luckily, we do already have that window up there that I can open for some more ventilation. Staple guns right there. Okay, well, yeah, I'm also not a fan of heights. So once I have to start standing up on this and just being here, I know it doesn't look high, and it isn't high. But just being on a ladder, you just get that feeling if you're going to fall. And it is, you know, messy enough down here. You don't want to. Basically, this is the last horrible thing before we put up drywall, you know? Before we connect the last few pipes, put up the kitchen. So it's gonna be good. But this is the worst part until it starts feeling rewarding. It's the most effort, most suffering, least reward. You just kind of have to hang on to the whole, well, it's almost done situation. Oh, I'm gonna have to thread this through these beams. Well, I don't like that at all. Anyway, it's worth it in the end, but also, it sucks sometimes. Essentially, I ended up doing 80% of the loft area. I feel disgusting, my eyes burn, I itch all over. And we still have the rest of the ceiling to go, but one step closer. Tiny homes aren't just cute montages and quirky music. It's a lot of sweat and coughing.
Yeah, honestly, I've heard most people prefer this spray foam because you can have someone come out and they'll do your whole house in like 2 hours.
Yeah, it didn't take 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, so spray foam. look
Ceilings
into
are a
it.
son of a gun, but we are very well insulated.
Yeah,
I
our
did
ceilings
good at that.
are a barn ceiling, so it's not a traditional ceiling. It comes out and then goes like this and
Yeah.
then goes down.
It's like the point, and then it comes out a little bit, and then the angle changes again, and then you get the walls that come down.
Yeah, but so insulation and all that, the planning of the house with the chalk was really good. We took measurements of like how big our couch was, how big the TV stand was, how big
Yeah.
the mattress was. Like we knew the queen size mattress would fit up in there because I knew the measurements of a queen size mattress, and the loft was like
12 by 12?
it was a 12 by 12. We did lose 1 foot on either side from
Yeah.
insulation, so it's an 11 by
Well,
12
also
now.
the slant of it. Like, it's not all of it's usable for humans, some of it's usable for storage.
Yeah. Well, we
Because of that.
also, in the front where our head is, at the front of the loft, we cut out for a window because we wanted light upstairs and to be able to open up the window for a nice cool breeze in the spring and in the fall. So that's something to look into. I would have preferred if we had another one back here in the office too. So we just had
Window?
another window.
Mm.
That might be
Yeah.
something that if we can figure out where all the wires are, we might be able to actually cut a hole and add a window.
I think by the time we got around to that, we'd already be kind of on our way to whatever our next adventure is, and I don't think
Yeah.
the next recipient will. Plus, Roxy loves having a place away from all the windows to duck and hide. She really likes
Which
that.
right now she's curled up around me like this.
Yeah,
Little minx.
I'm not slapping her butt. There's a dog here, but she blends in with the couch.
But I mean, we had all that measured out and we drew it with chalk, and then we kind of stood there and looked at it, and then we'd like kind of wipe it away with our feet if we didn't like it. Then when we had it completely, like this is exactly where we want it, we measured like I would get sent links from his dad and be like, I know you're the furniture queen, look at this, you're the mathematician, like I'm the budget person, like I would look at
Yeah.
the money, the width, the length, everything. Here's how big our sink is. It's a really small, like single cabinet size sink, perfect size, and be like, that's the measurement of it. So I'd measured the toilet and I drew that out or wanted it, and then I drew this out, and then I drew the shower out.
Which, since the
So-
floor was it wasn't like a finished floor, it was like
Mm-hmm.
a barn floor initially. So you can just chalk all over it and then wipe it off a little bit, and then.
I don't even think it got wiped off. We just put stuff over it and we're like, oh, that's fine.
Well, no, I meant like you would scuff your feet over it to
Yeah.
wipe it away, and then do the next version, or use a different color. Like we marked where where we wanted outlets with like pink, or then the walls would be blue, or the furniture would be yellow, so we could.
Because we
plot it.
initially used like a bright yellow to draw, and then because the floor was a light wood, we could kind of see it. We couldn't really see it. And then we used blue for the finalized version. So anytime someone was coming in to do something, we'd say, look for the blue lines, and we wrote what was there.
Yeah.
So that way they could see it and be like, if it's not in blue, don't put anything there.
Yeah, because like I would be working on stuff for work. Like I'd be over there editing photos and videos or making like graphics and stuff, and then our electrician would just show up and start installing things. And like we have outlets that we like for wall outlets, but also like light receptacles that we aren't even using 2 of them because the house is small. Like we don't have a light bulb up in the loft because we just use natural light, and we have string lights up there, so we don't hit our heads on the ceiling because it's already kind of a tight fit for activities and such, and just crawling in. And at first you hit your head a lot more than you do after a few weeks of living here.
You know, I actually looked up what those stupid bars across the top on that one side were for, and it was like hanging something in
Beams?
the barn. So they have these beams that are like an L like this, so it comes off the ceiling
Yeah.
right here. And we painted them bright red to match the doors, the windowsills, and all that. So no one would hit their head. And then I ran like T string lights with clear push pins all down them like a runway. So you can see them when you go up in the loft and you don't smack your head. I still hit my head sometimes.
Yeah.
I've gotten better. It's been a few weeks. Fingers crossed. But, you know, there's stuff that's in here that we don't use. Things that are in the way. But
Yeah.
when it came to that, like, that's an important thing is the layout. But also realize you'll probably lose 6 inches with, you know,
Yeah. Well-
your insulation and walling. So basically, whenever you're planning something and you don't know, even if you don't have a tape measure, pull out your phone, because even just a regular iPhone is 6.1 inches. That's the width you're going to lose
Well, also just
all the way around.
go to like Home Depot or something and look at the width of the sheetrock you're going to be putting on, and wherever the studs of your wall are that are running like this, you're going to take that and you're going to have sheetrock going like this for whatever width it is, and then whatever that width is going to be the number of inches you lose, maybe it's 2 here, 2 there, 2 here, but eventually you lose sort of 12 overall, and then when you measure the number of inches square feet wise that you lose it, in a tiny house, every wall sort of eats something up. And that is something that we thought we kind of understood, but obviously in places like the closet, we discovered we had underestimated how much bulge would factor in.
Yeah, and also something else people don't even think about planning out is where are you going to put like an air conditioner? We have one in the wall over here.
I hate it. We're replacing it, luckily.
Even then, I was not crazy about the wall idea.
Oh, no, neither am I.
All.
I don't like it.
It was something we didn't have a choice in. It was like we came out and there was a hole in the wall and we're like, what's going on? And then they were like, oh, we're putting your air conditioner in here. And I'm like...
Well, it was...
Hello there. This is the day after putting that horrible stuff up. This little So Ill on the Roam Jason Momoa mask. I didn't get a chance to show you guys because it was last night. We have an air conditioning unit on the side of the house. I know it's ugly. It's pretty hideous. I actually hate it. That's the thing is that I'll just take you inside so you can see how much it will actually impact our daily lives there. It's a little, I mean, it's like every air conditioner that's how it's a little loud sometimes. It's whatever, but it's also, it was free. And that's the thing. And of course we're gonna put trim around it. Gonna oil that. Where it's got just, you know, caulk all over it because it was a mess last night. We're gonna put trim around it and drywall and all this other stuff. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't mention is that, I mean, we're gonna be moving into this in the middle of summer in the South. It's gonna be hot. That thing was free. That's air conditioning. So would I prefer we have the $300 one that we were looking at that's silent and energy efficient and from a really reputable company and brand new? Absolutely, yeah. And we will probably get that someday. We'll pop that out and we'll just do what we have to patch up that part of the wall. I mean, even if it's ugly, we'll just put a photo over the patchwork. I don't care. I mean, it's not a big deal. But initially it needs to be livable, and that's free. And building a house is expensive, so you need to be cheap sometimes. If you have the money to do it, don't bother. But we're building this in a pandemic where no one has any money because, well, that's just the way the cards fell. So, yeah, some things might be ugly in phase one of your build, and maybe even for the first few months of living in it. But that doesn't mean you can't upgrade, you know? Like our bathroom area, which is obviously not finished. The shower stall's pretty basic, and the fixtures that are gonna go on the sink are kind of ugly. I mean, the fixtures inside of the shower are kind of ugly too, but we can replace those really easily, so it doesn't matter. As long as it's functional at first, that's enough. That son of a gun. Huh. I just realized my father did a little bit more insulation work after I went inside, because he did that wall, which is way easier than doing the ceilings that I had to do. This isn't the time for that. There are some hard choices that aren't always pretty. We're gonna have to do something about that cord. That is just hideous. Oof. But it's better to have something to live in now and fix later, like as long as it works, and then just upgrade it rather than, you know, end up spending as much as you would on a regular sized house, and that kind of defeats one of the main draws of having a tiny home. Now, if you don't mind, I have to climb up into that wonderful space and sweep it with this witch's broom, and then my wife is going to help me with this because we're going to start putting down flooring soon, even though I think it should be like the last thing so you don't scuff it up. But for the kitchen and the bathroom, you kind of need the flooring to be where it's going to be. So I got a little overruled on that.
Well, that's another one of those things that if we had planned this out and we had saved like $200, $300, we could have had a really nice, very sleek, modern sort of small thing that sits in a corner and like quietly with almost no vibration, heats and cools the house, both not just the air conditioner, but because it was sort of a run and gun situation, it was, well, what do we have around here and what's available for the right price? So we slapped a really old, junky air conditioner in there because it was the middle of summer while we were doing it, and it paid off in spades while we were working through the heat to actually be able to have air conditioning. But
And it died.
all of that dirt and dust that had collected over the years prior, plus what we'd done, especially when we started sanding down, like the mudding and taping we'd been doing in here, it just started, pouring water out. So we have a better one that we had in our window for a while that we're gonna actually cut that out and replace it with on like a weekend where it isn't horribly cold or horribly hot. I have hated looking at that air conditioning unit every step of the way, and the new one at least is clean enough that my eyes can sort of ignore it and it won't be a huge deal.
I've got a red sequin like handkerchief actually hanging over it right now, so we don't have to look at it. It was originally just to cover it up for Christmas, but then I left it because everything else on the house is red, and I'm like, I want to look at it. So I'll probably put it back up over the new one, but thinking about that, we didn't think about that. I didn't draw that in anywhere in Planet. It was something that was kind of just like thrown in for heating. I have a little fake wood burning stove right next to our TV. That's a heater.
With the flickering fire effect
I've got
in
a
it.
small space heater over here. We don't even have a heater up there because it's so insulated up in the loft. It gets so hot. And then we've got a really tiny space heater about the size of an iPhone 12 Pro
like
Max.
my hand.
Like sitting in the bathroom that heats it up beautifully. So that was something about planning that. Pink drawing for the outlets for water piping. That was just, we were like, okay, you do you, because we have no idea.
Yeah, that was something also was that we were gonna do just a sort of the toilet we were gonna have wasn't gonna actually use plumbing.
Yeah, it was gonna be a composting toilet.
Yeah, but they didn't want that for whoever was gonna be the next tenant.
Yeah, which
so
probably one of
they
his
paid the
brothers.
difference of, well, we'll pay for all of that since you just wanted the regular toilet, which meant that we had to find a spot with no roots nearby, far enough away from the house that it would drain, but also my father was thinking, well, if this turns out really well, we might make another one for another sibling to go move on to after you leave, so we'll just have like a little tiny home village on the property for whenever family comes to come visit again, or we can rent out.
It's common out here. You drive by and there's a giant house with like 3 little houses on it and a barn and a bunch of horses.
Well, our neighbors just down the way, they have land, and then they have a tiny home that their son lives in. I don't remember if he's married or not, but he has one as well. It's pretty common around here to just be like, your parents get older, they need help around the like yard, or maybe they have a farm or something around that, they have livestock, so you just stay nearby to keep an eye on them. And it's a financially beneficial situation for both parties, but also very stressful. And with water, we would have had to normally pay like the water to, or like,
Plumbers? The plumbers?
well, like the city to come out and create a way for us to get water from them, but instead we tied into what they have and created sort of a divergent pipe situation.
Hi, Sam. This line here we thought was the water line that fed the house that we were going to junction into, but no water is coming out. So we're digging underneath this cement block, trying to chisel it open, and we're trying to figure out where the water lines go. We did discover that within there, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not totally broken open. We did discover that that does actually control the water to the house, because we turned it off trying to see if we could hear water in it, and my wife couldn't use the faucet. So there's that. But yeah, so we dug 190, almost 200 feet of trench to a pipe that may or may not be connected to the pipes that we need them to be connected to. And on top of this, tomorrow I have to go
help some people unload boxes for a few hours, as well as all this. But on the bright side, we did get some more of the correct size pipe, and now we're just going to spray paint one of these pipes that's going to have the internet in it so that we can tell the two apart anytime we need to do any work on the two, so we don't accidentally cut into one thinking it's the other. And I don't remember if I said this in the last video, we actually ran it with a string that runs through it as well. So if we ever need to run a second line, you just attach it to one end and you pull it through the pipes. But yeah, we expected to already have this paved over, and we have to have it paved over by Thursday because my wife has an appointment, and you know, her car is right over there, so she can't get out. It's a rough one. I mean, hypothetically, we could fill that back in and drive out, but no one wants to fill it in, let someone drive over it, then have to dig it right back out. I've done a lot of work. This trench is changing me as a person. I do not like it. So if you're building a tiny home on a property, make sure you know where the water line is, and before you dig a trench, check the source of the water to ensure that that is in fact the source of the water. Unlike what my father did before brainstorming. Which then we ran over here, and for the power, they have a big power pole that's out in the back of their yard, you know, because it's a couple acres of land. And then, I can't remember, I think that's the one that just swings and goes out and connects to the house.
Yeah, it swings and connects to the pole that connects to the house.
Well, they have the pole, and then we have a different power meter, essentially, but they have their pole that delivers power, and then it comes down to a slightly smaller one that we had to build and install. Just a slight warning I wanted to give people. I was coming out here to check because we just got the power meter installed here. PSO agreed to run it 80 feet for free, so now we have to do the rest of it through the ground. Me and my wife dug that. But the thing is, if you want people to build stuff with you, that means you're going to be working closely with them. And I'm working closely with my family. I like my family. All of those arguments you have as a child are not easier when you're an adult and you're talking at a place you're going to live in. And when you're an adult, they don't fully understand things sometimes. So just know that working on a deal to build stuff with family, it's good. It can be financially more viable. It gives you good property. It gives you a good place to stay, at least initially even. Whether you have a mobile tiny home or just one that's going to be stationary and you're going to build again somewhere else like we are. But sometimes family struggles to understand the dynamic has changed since you've become an adult. And of course, you know, working with friends and then working with siblings, it's a different dynamic. Siblings will lay into you a little bit more with their insults. And yeah, what I'm saying is, in the end, this is probably going to be just fine, but be aware that when you're building with your family, it's a very high stress situation, and it's gonna suck a little bit. It's all those bad family arguments, but you're adults, and it's about the house you're gonna live in. Again, I sound negative. This is a good thing. I'm happy about it. But oh my God, my wife is getting a lot of insight into what it was like for me growing up. I'm getting a lot of sympathy out of it though. That's nice. She also cut my hair with, you know, children's craft scissors because it's quarantine. Not bad. And then dig that trench underground because it needs below the freeze line, and it has to go all the way over to the house. And so they also have a big shed, and we had to plot where we would put water that wouldn't be too close to septic, that would be far enough away, that wouldn't go underneath too much of the driveway and get crushed. Mm-hmm. Also then route the internet through that same thing in a separate pipe so that we can have internet access, or like, because we are fine paying for our own internet if like Elon Musk takes too long, but they know that their kids might not want to once we leave, so it's an option. And then we had to worry about, okay, well, how does the power get here without crossing into that shed? And then also not being in the way of trees. How many limbs are we going to cut down? How many trees are you going to cut down?
Yeah, and I'm allergic to cedar. So there was some cedar trees in the yard that they were like, we're just gonna straight up cut them down because we don't want to kill her. So
Well, they
appreciate
probably
that.
thought about killing you a few times during the process, but
No, the feeling was mutual. But I mean, it wasn't I think the biggest issue was that when we were building our house, we had to tailor it to us, but also tailor it to what they wanted.
yeah, it'd be acceptable for like, yeah, we could have that on our property. Like we were gonna have it oriented going this way instead of the way it is like this. But my mother was convinced that it would look sort of tacky and that our view wouldn't be as good as if we looked over here, because the plan was always to sort of disappear. The outside is very bland looking and blends in with trees, and then the inside is where the bright red is, and it's sort of like more fun. It's like a secret stealth situation, and it's fun. But so there were disagreements of like, well, what about this? Well, what about, will the wind affect that? Well, what if we moved it over here? Well, the water would pool up too much over there, so it should be over here. What's the distance you can do it? So the fact that we were tying into amenities provided by someone else, plus we were setting up where now we could have power and sewage that you could hook someone else up to. Like our septic tank, I think, is rated for a house that's obviously bigger than ours and would be for more people living in it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, according to the people and your dad, that this septic tank is the smallest one you can buy, so the least expensive, but it was up for up to 4 people, and since we're only 2.
And it has a situation where it sprays out of 2 nozzles once a day into like a part of there. You run pipes out from the septic tank, so the things you flush go down into the tank, and then the tank has cables that run out, or like plumbing stuff, and then it sprays out in these nozzles, which, you know.
And we've got stuff that we pour in there,
Yeah.
so it kills everything and makes it environmental friendly. Because I know someone's going to comment and be like, that's unsanitary for the environment. We've got stuff that gets poured in there that makes it environmental
And I
friendly.
was originally
Very green part of the yard.
I was.
All right, little tiny home experience. This is the surface of our septic tank. Leads up to our house, which is currently kind of a mess. Story of truthfully every tiny home. Whenever you first move in, our septic system hasn't been using the sprayers out by those red points. Apparently, although it has electricity, pardon me, getting dive bombed by gnats. Oh, there's another one. Apparently, they leave their septic system in the off position, so no matter what you do on the outside, it doesn't want to spray. And ours is set to spray early in the morning, which is one more reason for me to not get up early. You have to pardon me, I'm a little out of breath. We just had a rattlesnake issue that I had to deal with underneath the house. So I'm a little exhausted and out of breath and covered in sweat, which these flies cannot get enough of. Ugh. But I figure this will either work and may help other people, or it'll go terribly wrong. Oh boy, how do I use that? Huh. Well, everything seems to be connected. That must be the timer. Tell it when to do stuff. Smells like fresh manufactured plastics. Oh, okay. So it's off. 1, 2. Hey, that's our piss. Hey. Oh. So it can sense that it's a little over full, so it's spraying our feces with a ferocity equal to that of Zeus. Holy. Oh god, I hope I didn't just start spraying up into the house. But, I don't know if you can hear it, I'm not going to show you. I can hear the pumps on, and the light is on, which means that it is super full. Because, quite frankly, we poop. And we just fixed our shower like 2 nights ago, so it's got shower runoff in it. But yeah, okay. If you get a Max Air, which sounds like it's a skateboard comic book character from the 90s, 2 X's, pump installed on your septic system, make sure they keep it in the off position until there's power. Oh my god, that piss is so high.
That is all we have for this video. Please enjoy, well, have fun or enjoy whatever, watching the clips of what it was really like building the house, getting to this planning period. Don't get overwhelmed if this is something you want to do. It is possible. Know there will be stress and a lot of planning that will go into it. But if you really want it, I have confidence that you guys can
Yeah,
do it.
of injured and post-COVID. I mean, technically both post-COVID, but
Yeah, I don't know why it hit me worse.
I'm just special, you know. I made of good stuff, except for my spine and my knees
And I
and
never
my
get
hands.
sick, so that was the weird thing.
Of we can build a house, and if it can be one where the shell wasn't even the one we picked, but we still made it something we love on a budget, then if you budget better, actually get to have choices and aren't decrepit, it'll probably turn out great for you, because we're
Yeah.
happy every day. Like, we can have something that's like, oh, how are you gonna handle this new life problem that showed up? I know it's stressful. And then we'll just be outside while our dog's running circles around the house with a beautiful like sunset, and the breeze is nice, and it's just quiet. And it's like, you know what, it was all worth it, because every day I get like a couple of minutes of this. And I will say, we will have videos in the future where we talk about tips about cohabitating in a tiny home, because for a while it was like the first bit of marriage where you're like, I may kill this person.
Yeah.
If they don't get out of my face right now, I'm going to murder them
It
and
didn't-
blame it on a dog.
It didn't help that we had like tons of boxes and it was like weaving through, you know, a maze trying to get from one side of our, you know, 30-foot space to the other. So that didn't help. It was a lot. We made it though. I'm happy. I like it.
We're both fiery personalities, and if we didn't kill each other in a tiny home, then there's great chance that you won't kill each other in a
Yeah.
tiny home, especially with this dog that farts like it's her job. I think she's like most of the source of greenhouse gases in the United
Well,
States.
she also thinks she's a person. Like right now, she's sitting like a person.
Are you a person? What?
You a person? She's doing this right now because we're not paying attention to her.
Well,
Oh well.
it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's like crunching for finals, but afterwards that euphoria. But you have to, instead of like a couple weeks of that, make it 2 to 4 months of that. And again, that's if you're weekend warrioring, it'll take longer than if you're doing it full time.
And if you have the money to have someone come out and do your water, electricity, and
Do it.
plumbing, and your spray insulation, just do it.
Insulation, I think, is entirely doable. It's just a pain. But when it comes to water and electricity, if you can get someone who's actually certified to do that and will do it well, those are the things to spring money for. Because those are the things I wish we'd put money onto that we didn't spend on other things. But
Yeah, because we had to go back and fix things, and it would have cost just as much. If
Yeah.
we just had someone else do it.
replacing the parts of the wall, replacing the parts of like the plumbing, all the times we had to fix it, going without water for days at a time. All that headache could have been solved if we just had the setup, or if the lights didn't flicker, if the water's too hot in a cold day, you know. There are
Yeah.
things we wish we would have known, but now you do.
Exactly. And I still stand spray foam. Would have been so much easier.
Well,
It would have. My Uncle Dan, he was just like, that's the way to go.
it's proof that tiny homes still have big problems. So, we'll see you in the next video, which for you will be like a click away, and for us will be a couple days of editing. But
Yeah.
and I guess a time travel back like a year ago to when all this
Yeah,
was going
Because
on.
this is a year to the month of when it all started. When we were
And we
planning
did
the
we
shows.
planned that.
Totally.
No.